It's 7:35. Let's get started. I know people are still joining us. It's great to see such a great turnout tonight. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I'm sure it will be a good discussion, as they always are. My name is Jocelyn Patrick, and I am the current president of the Riverview Neighborhood Association. And I'm going to introduce Jason Tuvel, the project attorney for 107 New York Avenue. He's going to give a brief introduction, and then Anthony Vandermark is going to start the presentation itself. Everyone will notice that when they join the session, they are muted. We'll take questions at the end unless the presenter decides he wants to stop. I'm having everybody muted when they join because sometimes people don't remember to do that, and then you get a lot of background noise and it gets to be a bit disturbing. So that's why people are coming in and they're not necessarily able to talk, but there will be time for questions and answers. This is not just going to be a presentation where we don't get to participate. With that being said, thank you again so much for joining us tonight. I'm going to introduce Jason Tuvel, the project manager. And Jason, you are
right here.
Go. It's up on. It's all yours now, Jason.
All right, great. Thank you, Jocelyn. Good evening, everybody. We appreciate the opportunity to present before you on 107. As you're aware, this project had previously been before the zoning board. It was for about 75 units, 6-story building, and it was not approved at the zoning board. So the client and the project team went back to the drawing board to see how the project is better within the needs of the community, as well as working for the applicant at the same time. So Anthony, was charged, I guess, with have the heavy lift there to see how we can do that. So the presentation that you're going to see this evening will be, you'll see that we reduced the number of units by 15. We took significant height off of the building. We're adding green space, stormwater management, and other improvements and amenities that we think would be beneficial not only to the applicant, obviously, but also to the community as well as the surrounding area. So we're here to present to you and really get feedback as a discussion. We want to hear what you have to say regarding the project so we can make the project better and improve it if possible. So Jocelyn, I have Anthony, obviously, who's going to do the bulk of the presentation, show plans and show images and renderings. But I also have Matt Seckler, who's our engineer on the project, who could speak not only about stormwater management, but also about parking and traffic, if there's any questions in that regard. And also, as probably you all know, Ed Colling, who's our professional planner on the project, he's going to speak a little bit about on planning, policy, and how he feels that the project fits within the scope of the area. So with that being said, Jocelyn, unless you have any for me, I'd be happy to turn it over to Anthony so he could show everyone what we have proposed. And again, we're here to listen and hopefully enter into a healthy discussion regarding the application and the project.
All right, thank you very much, Jason. Anthony, you want to share your screen or introduce yourself and then share your screen?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you all for attending this evening. My name is Anthony Vandermark, and I'm a principal at MBMK Architecture. Let me share my screen for everyone. Can everyone see this?
Yep, you're good.
Fantastic. So this evening, we're here to present an adaptive reuse of the 2-story warehouse structure at 107 New York Avenue. What you're looking at here is the corner or the intersection of Fleet Street and New York Avenue. There's a 1-story portion of the structure, which is immediate to the south, as you can see to the left of this image.
There you go, Anthony.
So before you, we are proposing a 5-story, 58 feet, 10-inch high structure. We're proposing 60 residential units. What you see here before you is the corner perspective of the warehouse that I had just previously shown you. The 2-story portion is going to remain. However, we are renovating and we are providing a 3-story addition on top of the existing warehouse structure. The 1-story portion of the structure that I had previously mentioned to the south will be demolished, and there will be a 5-story addition returned back in its place, thus connecting the construction to look like one uniform structure. So what are the differences? What are the differences between the two projects? June 2020, as Jason had previously mentioned, we presented 75 residential units. This evening, we are presenting 60 residential units. The original application, we had an affordable contribution for off-site housing at $450,000. That is no longer the case. We are proposing a 10%, 6 units of affordable housing on-site. This falls in line with the inclusionary zoning ordinance that was just recently passed. The original application was at 6 stories, 67 feet 4 inches. This evening, we are presenting 5 stories at 58 feet 10 inches. The original proposal had 75 parking spaces. We are now presenting 60 parking spaces. The original proposal had various street improvements. We are maintaining those various street improvements, such as a bioswale system that connects a lot of the tree pits. A lot of the intersection pedestrian safety elements that were part of the original application remain. We were providing 13 new street trees, along with maintaining 4 that are existing. Around the property, we are proposing all new curbing and sidewalks, along with 50 bicycle parking spaces, including in the parking garage. With the 60 parking spaces, we have 3 electric vehicle charging stations. And as you can see from the previous slide, we have a brand new updated design that is pretty far apart from what the original proposal was. The existing site is a full city block. It is 23,625 square feet, so it's a little bit over a half an acre in size. To the east, you can see my cursor here. We have New York Avenue, and we have 140 feet of linear frontage there. To the south, we have Ravine Avenue, and that's at 203 linear feet of frontage. To the west of Webster Avenue there, we have 107 feet of linear frontage. And to the north, we have Fleet Street, which has 182 feet of linear frontage. So the site is large. It has definite great impact on the neighborhood. The diagonal connection street is New York Avenue that runs down to Hoboken. This is an aerial drone shot taken this morning, as a matter of fact. The existing building directly in the center of the photograph, between the building structure itself and the remaining property that is on the sidewalk, is at 100% impervious. What we're providing tonight, or proposing, is a substantial stormwater detention system with a large amount of extensive green roof, also followed by the bioswales that are at the sidewalk level. Some of the existing structures in the neighborhood of note, here in the foreground, you have a 3-story residential structure, which is the tan color. Directly across the street at Fleet Street, we have a 3-story and a 2-story residential structure, followed by a 1-story garage structure. Directly across the street from that on New York Avenue is the under construction 122, 124 New York Avenue. That structure itself is at 5 stories in height and approximately 56 feet 8 inches. So our new structure, that structure, and the trolley house lofts directly across the street will align with each other in height. To the south of trolley house lofts, you have the Supremo supermarket. And then again, in the foreground here, you have Ravine Avenue, and we'll talk a little bit about those structures. Another aerial view directly across the street on Ravine Avenue now. As you can see, we have a series of 2-family, 3-story structures, followed by the connection of New York Avenue, which is a larger multifamily at 5 stories on the corner. Again, trolley house, the new structure, which is outlined here, and the smaller scale residential structures in the foreground. Again, perspective now looking to the north and to the west, just rotating the building. Supremo Market is here in the foreground. And again, it shows you the extent of the coverage. The existing building coverage is at 96.4% of coverage. The one-story addition will be demolished, which is here in the center of the photo. And again, a 5-story portion with the 3-story portion to the north over the existing warehouse. Taking you back down the street level, again, this is the intersection of New York Avenue and Ravine Avenue. The series of 3-story, 2-family structures in the multifamily are to the left, which is down New York Avenue. This is the intersection of New York Avenue and Ravine Avenue. As you can see, the existing 1-story structure has a very large curb cut with 3 loading bays. That is to be removed. The curb is to be returned, and we are returning 2 parking spaces back on the street as part of this proposal. What we have here is a controlled intersection of Webster Avenue and Ravine Avenue. As you can see, the traffic light in the center of the page. We have a pre-existing loading bay at Webster Avenue. We are also removing all 3 of those loading bays, returning the curb and the sidewalk back to the Webster Avenue frontage. There's no parking on Webster Avenue at this location, therefore no parking will be gained. Last existing slide, we have Webster Avenue and Fleet Street. Again, 2 controlled traffic lights. We will be proposing the main vehicular ingress and egress at Fleet Street, which will have the least amount of impact on the adjacent area and the traffic. That being said, I am now going to turn the slides over to Matthew Seckler, who's the traffic engineer. Matt, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. And I guess I'll try to tell you when to change slides since you're controlling the screen.
Sure.
Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Seckler. I'm with Stonefield Engineering Design. We're the site civil engineer as well as the traffic engineer of record for this project. Just wanted to go over a couple items specifically related to some of the intersection improvements or intersection safety improvements we're looking to make. Brief a little bit about stormwater, and then kind of trip generation and parking generation associated with this development. The first slide here summarizes, looking at this from an aerial point of view, some of the improvements that we had previously suggested at this site during the earlier applications, and some improvements that I think would be useful that we've discussed with city staff in the past. They include a series of pedestrian bump outs. These are what you see in yellow at a number of the corners around the project site. What this does is not only does it decrease the amount of distance that a pedestrian is in the roadway itself, but also provides better visibility for both the pedestrian and the motor vehicle when someone does want to cross the street. It gets them beyond the location of a parked vehicle. So again, they are a better view of traveling cars. Cars have better view of them, and again reduces the crossing distance, the amount of time they're actually in the roadway itself. We are proposing them at a number of intersections. Again, you see them, located here at, basically 3 of the corners. These bump outs being proposed. In addition, we discussed in the past with city staff on converting 2 of the intersections, the 2 intersections along New York Avenue, into all-way stop conditions. Both of these intersections, the one at Ravine and the one at Ferry, both suffer currently from some line of sight restrictions due to buildings that are built basically on the setback line. And by creating an all-way stop condition, it does create for better pedestrian safety as cars are no longer zipping through the area, driving over the crosswalks when a pedestrian may be looking to cross. So again, all-way stop signs at the 2 New York Avenue intersections, bump outs we are proposing. An earlier, or the earlier project that we looked at the site, the bigger project included the potential for some turn restrictions at the intersection of New York Avenue and Ravine. We are no longer proposing those. They kind of were met with, I'd say some people were in favor of them, some people were against them. We didn't want to, create a condition where there could be some negative outcry related to the changing of traffic patterns such as that. So we sought to keep New York Avenue as you're coming up from Hoboken as a full movement, stop controlled intersection, so you can continue to make a left turn or a right turn when coming up New York Avenue from Hoboken. But again, we are looking at making that an all-way stop, which would provide for better visibility from oncoming vehicles and pedestrians. What you see here also on the plan, you'll see much prettier images later on from Anthony, some of the streetscape improvements from an aerial perspective. They include rain gardens, the tree pits, and various not only beautification from an aesthetic perspective, but improvement from an environmental and a stormwater management perspective on the site itself or in the public right-of-way. That will see some significant, again, environmental and stormwater management benefits with those kind of rain gardens and bioswales located along the site frontage. Also, the building itself will have some significant improvements as it relates to how it collects stormwater. Currently today, there is no stormwater system whatsoever, so anything that hits this site, and again, it's essentially building from property line to property line, basically just runs off, finds its way into the stormwater system in the street without any real detention or slowing down. So during the worst storms, water is entering the system at high speeds with really no slowdown, no metering effect. We're proposing at the site, and you'll see some images later on, is a green roof, which will again help promote a best management practice of stormwater management, as well as a total stormwater storage, about 15,000 gallons on site. What that means is that when the storms come and the rain comes, stormwater is actually collected underground and stored there and released into the city system on a slower basis. So basically, the idea is you hold it back, 15,000 gallons, and release it into the system when the peak periods have passed. So when you get a 45-minute summer storm, the stormwater system is inundated in the city. We are basically collecting our stormwater, and it is released over time. So not during those 45 minutes when the system is taxed at a city level. So that is the stormwater system that we're looking to improve here today. I do see a comment there before. Anthony will about the number of trees. Anthony will show you the more detailed vision, which has, I believe, all 14 trees that he had promised on the earlier slide. The next slide, I think, might be a comparison of the traffic. Yes. Okay. So looking in terms of the traffic impacts of a site such as this type of development, what we've done is a compare-contrast of a kind of fully operational warehouse of this size, and looked at the number of vehicles that you would typically have for a warehouse. If the investment was made to, operate this warehouse at normal, I'd say typical conditions, you could see the extent of vehicles, meaning likely employees or customers coming by the site, as well as the number of potential box trucks or tractor trailers that would utilize a site such as this. I think anyone who's driven through the neighborhood at a time where the loading docks, especially on Webster, are being utilized, understand the significant traffic disruption that they cause in order to access the loading docks. Clearly, a warehouse in a urban city center, or urban city area like Jersey City and this area of the Heights, it creates a significant amount of congestion as it relates to trying to utilize this site for tractor trailers or even box trucks. From a proposed development perspective, we looked at what the trip generation would be for a 60-unit building. Typically, what you see during your busiest hours is a trip generation of about 18 vehicles in the morning peak hour. That's one car every 3 minutes being generated by this site. These values don't take into account, the the specific area of Jersey City this is located in, where there may be a further reduction of those trip generation values due to the ability of mass transit. Typically, in the engineering industry, we would have a threshold of 100 vehicles being increased in an hour as something that would be significant, something that we need to study. Maybe changing the travel patterns of a neighborhood may require new traffic signals or signals to be retimed. And again, we are about 1/5 of that value of 100 trips in an hour, looking at about 18 trips in a single hour. Again, about one car every 3 minutes. In addition, in terms of overall throughout the day, you have generally people coming and going, leaving in the morning, coming back in the evening. So really, in terms of the driveway usage of a site like this, you'd look at about 70 times a vehicle be coming in and out of the site. We do expect, again, typically potentially one box truck coming to the site, whether that's a UPS type box truck, some type of delivery to the site. You'll see later on in the Anthony's presentation, not only the ability for a moving truck to enter the site and to load from inside the garage itself, so it would not be on the street, but also an area in which we could have your Amazon vehicle to park when they're within this site here. So again, the data that you've seen on this slide in terms of the traffic that we'd be adding to the roadway network, about one car in every 3 minutes or so, is not a significant increase of traffic to the area, and would not significantly impact the roadway network or capacity. In addition, we are providing 50 bicycle parking spaces. We know the city's is looking to pursue and continue their Vision Zero effect. So again, we are looking to promote alternative means of transportation for our residents with the 50 bicycle spaces. We are providing 60 parking spaces on site, which is one space for every unit, which is in line with the typical R1 standard, which is one parking space for every unit. So again, they'll be provided on site in the garage, and you'll see some later slides that get to where those spaces are specifically located.
Matt, just a few things. I just wanted to let you finish. There were just a couple questions, that were asked by some of the residents. So I just wanted to they're all within your expertise, so I wanted to go through them. So first, let's talk about deliveries and things of that nature. Uber, Amazon. How would that work here, and what's typical? Let's take that question first.
Yes. Okay. Absolutely. So we do have an area, and I think Anthony kind of flipped the slide a little bit. There is an area located just adjacent to the garage itself. The garage is located on the top of the page. It's kind of the hatched area is the curb cut. We've extended the hatch so that you have the ability to have an extra kind of loading space, for Ubers, DoorDash, any of those type of vehicles.
Anthony, can you show that on your using your pointer so we can see what area he's talking about?
So that's the driveway. And so that hatch consumes not only the actual curb cut, but we also have extended it to allow for the ability for vehicles to stop, and park or wait in the area adjacent to that area.
All right, and that would be typically an Amazon truck or vehicle that would be in the area anyway, and it would just include this as part of its delivery route, right?
Absolutely. I imagine the Amazon vehicle that's stopping here likely is stopping at some other residence within a 1 block radius of here. I know they tend to pick, various locations to stop, but at least we provided some location. Not every street in Jersey City has a location for a Amazon vehicle to stop at all.
Yeah.
So we
And
provide.
we're using Amazon as an example, but that would also apply to FedEx, UPS, USPS, all those types of vehicles, right?
Correct. Yes.
And also, I don't know if it's a question, but I'm assuming, somebody might have this question. In terms of like a moving vehicle, somebody we're moving in and out, someone could use that and also coordinate with management on when they could use that space, right?
The moving vehicle could actually be accommodated interior to the site. You'll see some later plans where that we do have enough clearance within the garage for your typical kind of moving van to have access into the garage itself, and there is a spot for it. Typically, you don't see tractor trailer type deliveries into kind of 1 or 2 bedroom apartments. So that's the
Okay.
it's the threshold. That's the issue there. Obviously, if the city is willing or the neighborhood is willing to want to have more loading space, that's obviously something that we could pursue. But obviously the regulations on street are typically managed by the city and their own engineering department. But again, obviously any loading space here is not exclusive to this building. Any resident across the street nearby, it's possible this is the spot where their Amazon truck will decide to stop to make the deliveries because this may be more convenient to them than double parking elsewhere in the city.
Okay, and then in terms of your trip generation analysis, that's just, can you just explain the industry standard that you go off of, and also what studies you do with your office to verify the traffic and the trip generation for the project?
Yes. So what we utilize is what's called the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual. What it is engineers like myself have counted the number of cars that go in and out of driveways for various residential developments. Some developments may be 30 units, some may be 100, some may be 50, and basically they come up with a ratio for the amount of units in the building, how many cars come in and out. Now, I will say that the values are typically suburban values, likely are not locations that have such, let's say, accessibility to mass transit. So I would imagine the numbers that you see here are likely leaning up a little bit higher than the typical Jersey City apartment of 60 units in the busiest peak hours. But again, that's what the industry standard would utilize, would be this Institute of Transportation Engineers book.
Yeah, and I also want to make sure everyone understands as well. These aren't the total number of vehicles passing through the area. These are just the total vehicles that the site would generate in the peak hour, not the total amount of cars in the area. Is that right?
Yeah. So as part of this project, we did do a traffic study. The traffic volumes that we collected actually were pre-pandemic volumes. So when people, were driving more often than potentially they were today, or at least the commuting patterns were more typical, I would say, in terms of, less work from home, less flexible hours. So I'd say your more typical morning and evening rush hour flows that we knew pre-pandemic. We did grow those values significantly to account for growth in the area. Obviously, Jersey City, Hoboken, the nearby areas are consistently growing. We have seen, at least pre-pandemic, with that growth did come kind of a shift in modal split further and further away from single occupancy passenger vehicles. Obviously, coming out of the pandemic, we'll see if those numbers hold. But as we see more and more density, we typically see less and less car usage.
Okay. And in terms of the number of parked cars on the street by the site, we're not going to be decreasing the amount of on-street spaces as a result of the construction, correct?
Correct. In fact, as Anthony mentioned, that there are a number of loading docks that are located along the Ravine side of the building, which would be able to be converted into parking spaces. Obviously, we are removing parking spaces on the Ferry side in order to create our driveway. It'll likely be a net wash, or perhaps one extra space will be on the street than exists today, just based on how the site lays out. In addition, we are removing the very large kind of curved curb along the Ferry Street, New York Avenue kind of intersection, and actually creating more of a 90-degree angle helps actually increase the number of parking spaces along that spot. So it's either it's either a net even or a +1 in the parking perspective.
Okay. And Jocelyn, I'm just trying to see if I want to make sure I can hit every question. Somebody asked.
I think what's probably going to happen is, because they're coming in kind of hot and heavy here.
Yeah. I'm just trying to answer as many as we can. In terms of the question, has there been an independent traffic study done as well? Matt, what would happen is here we're on a county road and also a city road. We would submit our traffic report that we did to to those professionals, the city's professionals and the county's professionals. They would review our data, our report, our methodologies, and then if they wanted to conduct their own or ask us to clarify some things, that they would ask us to do that, correct?
Yes, both the county and the city have their own professionals that review traffic studies and provide comment, require changes to the report if they find something's inaccurate, or requires some sort of mitigation if they believe that the project will have a negative impact to the area.
And when you speak to mitigation, you mean it could be just give an example, just so everyone's aware.
You would typically in Jersey City, you wouldn't be looking at widening, but if you were working another roadway, it could be widening, it could be signal timing changes.
Okay.
What we were suggesting with the all-way stops, the city could say, come back and say, listen, we don't want an all-way stop here because X, Y, and Z, or they could say, we want an all-way stop, you didn't have one here. This we think would be a benefit to the neighborhood.
Okay. And the methodology that you used, which is the ITE, that the state, the counties, the cities all rely on. Your point in saying that it's based on more suburban data is that for this analysis, your analysis is really conservative because there's not mass transit in those areas. So this would be more of a conservative analysis, right?
Yeah, I mean, from an anecdotal perspective, prior to the pandemic, we had done some counts in Hoboken at some residential buildings and found that the actual trip generation during the morning and evening rush hour was about 15% of what the industry standard number would be. Because again, high usage of mass transit, people walking, people taking bikes, people working from home. That was, the area like Hoboken, Jersey City, would likely see a lessening compared to what the IT industry standard would have.
Okay. And then the last thing, I guess, from the questions, and again, if there's more, we're happy to try to answer all of them. Somebody indicated that there may have been some larger projects approved in the area within the, very recent within the very recent time period. Your analysis typically accounts for all projects that have been approved, even if they're not under construction or lived in at the moment, right?
Yeah, it's a combination. One, we normally use first off a general growth rate factor. So we would take whatever volumes we count and grow them just generally, usually in a range of 1 to 3% compounded year over year from when we originally did the counts. Just assuming in New Jersey, there's always something going on. There's always additional development. If there is specific nearby development that could affect intersections we study, we usually reach out to the local planning board and find out if there's any traffic studies that we could utilize in order to supplement our counts to make sure we account for those developments. That is typically one of the comments that the planning boards end up raising because, or they're reviewing traffic engineers raise is they would tend to provide us, hey, this is a project that was approved. This is one that'll be coming on shortly because again, in places like Jersey City, you could have projects that were approved 10 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, finally getting around to being constructed. And it's, obviously difficult for an engineer who doesn't work for the city to know every single project. So that's typically part of the give and take that happens when the city reviews it.
Okay. Did you want to turn it back over to Anthony so he can go through the building?
Hold on a minute, Jason.
Sure.
There is one question here that I think is directed to Matt.
Sure.
You said 100 vehicles an hour is the threshold for reconsidering traffic plans, and your project is only calling for 20 an hour at 60 units. Well, not 300 feet away on New York Avenue is a new 500 unit development, 300 of which haven't been built yet. Won't your project and that project thus overwhelm the road if we go off of your ratios?
Yeah, so what I was stating before is typically, and this is a state standard, would be you have to study something if it creates 100 trips. 100 trips doesn't automatically mean the road fails. It means that it needs to be investigated. As part of this project, we actually studied the 4 intersections that are on our corners. So the all adjoining intersections to us, we did study. As Mr. Tuvel mentioned earlier, what we do as part of the planning board or zoning board process is when we submit these reports, the city reviewing engineer typically looks at it and says, you know what, this project's coming online, this project still is a later phase. They would provide us with additional information if it's not in our report already, and then we would have to revise our report to account for that additional traffic. So I don't want it to be thought of that once you hit 100 trips, every road in Jersey City collapses and needs to be widened. It's the fact that at 100 trips, it creates an intersection that's worthy of being studied. And that study may conclude that there's enough capacity. It may conclude that timing needs to change. It may conclude that a traffic demand management plan should be put in effect. Something that requires more investment in a shuttle infrastructure or busing and biking and things like that. That's typically the way that the city and the county have been looking in this area. So I hope that answers and clears up that question. and I'm sure there'll be plenty more. So I'm not going anywhere, and I think Anthony's got hopefully some pretty pictures to show.
Okay, let's continue.
Thank you, Jocelyn. So Anthony, you want to go back to your plans?
Yes, thank you very much, Jason. Before you have a colored site plan now, and just to kind of piggyback what Matt was talking about, we have the various kind of corner and pedestrian kind of street improvements here. We are proposing all new concrete curbing and all new sidewalks around the perimeter of the building. Again, as previously stated, we have 13 new street trees. We're going to try to maintain the existing 4, which is in the darker green color here. Each one of those tree planter beds, in conformance with the Jersey City forestry standard, we will kind of interconnect bioswales, which is like a rain garden. And I have some pictures of what a rain garden would look like a few slides down. You know, as you work your way kind of into the building now.
Anthony, somebody asked, and I don't know when this was, but can you just like maybe zoom in your slides a little bit more just so people can?
Sure.
Yeah.
How's this?
Yeah, better. Just so people can see a little more.
Okay. So working your way into the building, we're going to maintain the existing lot coverage at 96.4%, and that is 22,786 square feet of floor plan area here. As you can see, the proposal for the new building has a center courtyard. It's approximately 1,500 square feet. The upper roof, to the left side of the upper roof, you can see this 5,200 square feet of extensive green roof on the upper roof. Now, that is equivalent to 22% of the overall site area. So that's a substantial amount of extensive green roof, which is, again, one of the green elements that we're proposing as part of this project. That goes hand in hand with the stormwater detention system that Matt had previously mentioned. Also on the upper deck, as you can see, we have some outdoor area. You have a gray pedestrian paver there. It's at 4,170 square feet. We have a small rooftop amenity space at 2,400 square feet, and it's flanked by a 1,020 and a 1,000 square foot wood deck on the upper roof. Just taking you to the black and white version of what I had just previously described. One of the things we did want to focus on is we had talked about the 19-foot wide curb cut. You can see it here where my cursor is located. That's going to be on Ferry Street, and that's followed up with an extra wide, 37-foot wide by 9-foot deep drop-off zone for Uber and package delivery of Amazon and so forth. We think that is in close proximity to the main residential and building entry. So this should kind of work out perfectly for this. What you have before you is an existing photograph of Ravine Avenue working its way back down to New York Avenue. Next slide will show you, with these sidewalk improvements, what this sidewalk on New York Avenue, on Ravine Avenue would become. Rainwater garden is on the right side of the sidewalk in this photograph, and new building is on the left side of this photograph. This is the sidewalk at New York Avenue with the trolley house lofts located to the right side of the photograph. And again, there's new construction directly across the street of multifamily. When you look at the street and sidewalk improvement here, again, bioswale rainwater garden on the right-hand side, followed with the 5-story portion of the building where the existing warehouse was. We can get a look at some of the materials that are being proposed here. We have like a patinaed copper aluminum composite panel as the horizontal, and wrapping the existing warehouse structure, we have brick masonry in the background. What is a bioswale system? As you can see, it's a A rainwater collection system, again, that will take rainwater from the street and also from the sidewalk, slowly dissipate into the soil to a drainage system, and then slowly release it back out to the municipal storm system. So this is another method of stormwater management that's not technically on our property. However, the owner is committed to doing these sidewalk and street improvements for the neighborhood.
Anthony, I'm going to interrupt here for a minute because several people are asking who's going to actually maintain these bioswales, because it's wonderful to put them in, but if nobody maintains them, it kind of defeats the whole purpose. So who's going to be responsible to actually maintain them to make sure they function the way they're supposed to?
This will be a management company, maintenance, the management company for the building, 107 New York, whether it being apartment and or condominium, it will be maintained by the management of the building.
Yeah, Jocelyn, I could also answer that from a legal perspective too. So Anthony's absolutely right. And also, number one, because these are on the street, at least the landscaping that's proposed on the street, we're going to have to bond for these with the city. So we'll have to provide a maintenance bond for these so they get first a performance guarantee, actually, which we have to ensure that they get installed the way that they're on the plans. And then after they're installed, we have to also have a maintenance guarantee for 2 years after that, where the city is able to hold a bond to make sure that they stay the way that they were installed. Besides for that, if the city approves the project, the landscaping plan and all the plans that we propose, if whatever trees are there, whatever landscaping is there, all these details that Anthony is showing, those approvals run with the land, and the applicant or owner or management company are legally bound to preserve them and maintain them in the exact form that they're on the plans. I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that as well.
And Jason, just to, as from a stormwater perspective, as opposed to if the city was making improvements like they have in other areas, beautifying streets and putting these in, they don't necessarily somewhat belong to anyone's site plan. So that's when they typically, at least what we've seen, fall into further disrepair, because it's on the city to come around and, maintain it when they can. When it's on a site plan, as Jason said, having worked on a number of projects like this, it becomes, again, the whoever received the approval and what's falling after, what's going, if they sell it or whoever ends up taking the property, that's who has to maintain it. So again, it's not an orphaned bioswale like you may have if the city does it on their own.
Yeah, and what'll happen is, assuming if there is an approval in any respect, the approved plans are signed by, I'm sure a lot of people know this, they're signed by the zoning board, and those plans that are signed, we're bound to adhere to those specifications. So, all right, Anthony, please continue. I just wanted to make sure we clarify for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I'm going to take you to inside the building here in the actual application drawings. As previously stated, we are proposing a 5-story and 58-foot 10-inch structure. We have 60 residential units within the structure. Of the 60 residential units, we have 24 one-bedrooms, 32 two-bedrooms, and 4 three-bedrooms. Including this proposal, we have 50 bicycle parking spaces with 60 car parking spaces. Of the 60, we have 36 mechanical spaces, 21 standard spaces, 3 of which are electric vehicle stations, and then we have 3 ADA parking spaces. We are proposing, again, the lot coverage at 96.4%, which matches the existing structure. And we are maintaining the 1'10" setback, which is at Ferry Street. The upper floors, as part of this proposal, are at 90%. We have a center courtyard, as previously stated, and it's at 21,326 square feet. So those are general parameters of the project. Taking you within the building footprint here, we have the proposed first floor plan. The residential entry, main lobby, will be at the intersection and the pedestrian bump out there of New York Avenue and Ferry Street. Again, centrally located, we have the garage entry from Ferry Street. We have proposing a 19-foot wide curb cut. Since we're utilizing the existing structure of the first 2 floors here, and you can see the circular column grid within the parking garage. The parking garage is elevated off of the street 4 feet So we have a small ramp that takes you from Ferry Street up to the first floor of the parking garage. Now, the residential lobby and portions of the new addition to the south, my cursor is here, they will have different sidewalk entries at the grade level. Within the parking garage here, you can see, again, proposing 60 parking spaces. The majority of the standard spaces have to be centrally located and more so towards the Webster Avenue. These are kind of being proposed where the elevated structure and the elevated first floor deck are. Below the elevated first floor here, we have an existing basement space. We'll be utilizing that for utilities. The stormwater detention system will be underneath the secondary aisle here in front of the mechanical parking spaces. And as you can see, this rectilinear column line here, that is where the new addition will occur to the south of the structure, where we're providing the mechanical parking spaces. Each space you see here is one in a pit with one at the garage deck level and then one above, totaling 36 in total here. Again, on Ravine Avenue, as we work our way up the page, we are proposing 50 bicycle parking spaces, access from the sidewalk, transformer room, and 2 storage spaces at the corners.
And Anthony, I think somebody asked this, and if you covered it, I'm sorry. All
Sure.
the parking is on the inside?
All the parking, all 60 parking spaces is on the inside of the structure, correct. There is no street parking as part of this proposal.
Yeah, as well as the bicycle, as well as these bicycle storage, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
This is a 3-dimensional rendering of the residential entry at the intersection of New York Avenue and Ferry Street. As you can see, again, we have wrapped the existing concrete warehouse structure with nominal brick masonry. We are proposing a projected aluminum canopy with the building signage directly at the front, 107 New York Avenue. All signage and projections, of course, will be compliant with signage standards, and also, if needed, we will provide a franchise agreement for the projection of the canopy itself. We are not proposing any building element crossing over the property line. This recently has become an issue in Jersey City that they do not want building cantilever. So the building is at 0 property line on 3 sides, and it's set in 1'10" again at Ferry Street.
Anthony, again, I just wanted to make sure everyone was up to speed on how are we going to handle refuse and recycling?
Absolutely. Let me go back. Let me zoom back in. My apologies. At the first floor, adjacent to the lobby area, top right-hand corner, we do have the compactor and trash room. We are proposing a trash chute from the residential floors that will go to a compactor. We have 2 methods of actually taking the trash out from the compactor room. We can go directly out into the sidewalk where independent carting will take it away, or the garbage truck of independent carting will enter the garage itself. We are proposing a 16-foot wide by 35-foot deep loading zone. Now, this will not only be could be for garbage collection, but it also will be for, larger scale move-ins and move-outs and larger element deliveries. So not only do we have the short-term delivery zone centrally located on Ferry Street, we have a larger loading bay located within the building volume. So we think for short-term deliveries, we have that issue kind of addressed. And then also for move-ins and moves-outs of tenants, we do have the larger loading bay adjacent to the lobby area.
All right, and so management will be responsible for trash and recycling pickup, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It will be independent carting and will not be city service.
Okay. So Matt, from a traffic standpoint, you've reviewed the building and you're in agreement that a trash vehicle and also an ambulance, if necessary, could go within the building, correct?
Yeah, and I think Anthony, I don't know if he mentioned it in terms of the clearance within the garage, but it has, not only does it work from a horizontal perspective, but also a vertical perspective.
All right. And Anthony, also, I don't know if anyone's going to ask this question, but I'll just ask it. Fire suppression within the building. Obviously, you have to meet all applicable codes, but if you could just explain that very briefly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This building will be fully suppressed, including the garage. The garage will be heated, so we'll have a wet system, not only in the garage, but throughout the 4 floors of the residences above. There will be a sprinkler system that'll be located, in the basement, a sprinkler valve, and if needed, there will be a sprinkler pump to, manage the water pressure going up throughout the building. The standpipe system will be located in the stairwell adjacent to the main lobby there. So we are fully suppressed, and we are a fully ADA compliant structure.
Okay. And Matt, you reviewed it for ADA compliance with respect to from a civil and also a parking standpoint, correct?
Yeah, from an internal circulation from the garage perspective, and obviously when we get to the hopeful design plans of the actual corners of the intersections, those will be designed to meet ADA compliance.
Okay. All right. And Anthony, building materials and appliances, how will you be using energy efficient type of materials and things of that nature?
Oh, yes, of course. I mean, the building itself will qualify for LEED certification if the owner so desired to go in that direction. We all know that's very expensive, but it would meet the quality points to go ahead and be certified if need be. We will have Energy Star rated appliances throughout the building. We'll have low flow water and toilet fixtures. We will have Energy Star rated windows and a very tight building envelope here that meets the latest IBC standards, which is actually more stringent now than in previous years. So, this building will be, of state-of-the-art construction from an energy code standpoint. Yes.
Okay. And then someone asked, just to confirm, I think, the number of street trees. Can you just indicate how many there are on the plan?
Yes. We are proposing 13 new street trees, and we are choosing to leave the existing 4 street trees. We have 1 at New York Avenue, 2 at Ravine that we're looking to leave, and then there's 1 that happens to be on Ferry Street. You can see it located here in the top left-hand corner.
Got it. Okay. And then how's laundry handled for the units?
We have in-unit laundry washer and dryer facility, so there will not be any kind of laundry service running in and out of the building.
Okay. And the mechanical equipment will be properly screened on the roof and not visible from the public right of way?
Oh, yes, absolutely. This is something that Jersey City, insists upon. At the very least, a 4-foot high screening element around all condensers and mechanical equipment, and that will be provided here.
Okay. Anything else that you wanted to add, Anthony, that maybe we didn't cover?
No, not at the first floor. I was going to work my way probably up to the building through the residential floors next.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So before you have the second floor plan, which is the first residential floor. Again, we are utilizing the existing structure of the warehouse, at the northern portion of the building. The circular columns are located on the plan. You can see that each residential floor, 2 through 5, have 15 units. Each floor is typical. So when you're looking at the floor plan here for the residential floors, you're looking at a single loaded corridor. As you can see, there is a 3,500 square foot residential storage area, which is directly in the center. However, around the perimeter of the building now, where the residential units are, we have 6 one-bedrooms, and they range from 715 square feet to 796 square feet. We have 8 two-bedrooms in this floor plan, and they range from 1,009 square feet to 1,454 square feet. And then the bottom right-hand corner here, top right-hand corner here, we have 1 3-bedroom per floor at 1,438 square feet. Each one of these residential units, as you can see here on the floor plan, has its own private outdoor space, something that obviously has come about during COVID, and should we never go back to lockdown again, outdoor space has become critical and very important to a lot of the apartment buildings that we are designing currently, not just in Jersey City, but all over the state. Excuse me. So taking you up to the third floor, again, 15 residential units. Each unit has outdoor space. However, the courtyard now in the center is no longer building structure. It is open to the sky. As you can see, we have a outdoor area with some seating, with some landscaping. That is a 1,500 square foot courtyard. And adjacent to that, in the center of the floor plan, we have a 1,000 square foot amenity space that opens up into the courtyard with a little covered area. Again, so we have some common area amenity space with some outdoor space that can be utilized by multiple tenants, and it's not private. This is a public amenity space. Fourth floor again, very similar, 15 residential units of the same unit breakdown that I had previously mentioned. The outdoor area is now covered and enclosed, so you have a 1,450 square foot amenity lounge, and that looks down into the courtyard, which is at the third floor.
Anthony, just to go back, just because there's been a bunch of comments about it,
Mm-hmm.
the trash pickup will occur inside the building, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so a trash vehicle that is a private hauler that the operator has to utilize will come under the building, go into the compactor, and load the truck there. You will not be pulling out trash onto the street, right?
That's correct. We have the head clearance for multiple size trucks or even a garbage truck. So it can be removed from within the building volume and not from directly across the sidewalk through the parked cars and back out to the street on Ferry. So yes, we will remove trash from within the building parking garage.
Okay, I just want to make sure everyone understood that. Keep going.
Sure. As a fail-safe, you do provide a set of double doors from the trash compactor room that do open up to the exterior for whatever reason. Something needs to be taken out of that room. However, what I am basically stating is that we have the ability to remove the trash from within the parking garage.
Okay.
Fifth floor again, 15 units. So we have 15 per floor at 4 floors, 60 residential units in total of the quantities that I had previously stated. Fifth floor again has a 1,000 square foot centrally located gym that is wrapped around with the common area hallway. It has a outdoor terrace at the gym level for potential outdoor workouts or for seating, and that looks down into the courtyard below. Taking you back up to the roof plan, and we do have the colored site plan adjacent to this here. Again, we have various areas for outdoor space for the residents to use. We do have a 2,400 square foot amenity space, which in the black and white version you can see, which is adjacent to the concrete pavers. This is labeled as tiles. It also has access to both wood decks at the north and the south. And there is a 5,200 square foot extensive green roofing area that is unwalkable. Those roofing trays happen to be like a moss, and they do not need to be maintained. They maintain themselves. So again, we have a substantial amount of extensive green roofing area at the upper roof, and adjacent to, we have different, building amenities, indoor and outdoor, and everything looks down into the center courtyard. Looking at the building in section, again, we have a 3-story courtyard in the center. The first floor is primarily the parking garage with some support spaces and also the main residential entry. From floor to floor heights, from the sidewalk, the first floor is at 17 feet 6 inches. Now that is the pre-existing height of the structure now, and again, we're maintaining that column system and that second floor slab from the existing warehouse. So as a previous application before you, we basically gutting the whole entire building. We are now maintaining the columns at the first and second floor of the existing warehouse side. And this is a true adaptive re-roofs as opposed to something that we were maintaining the perimeter of the building and not the interior. We are making the most of the existing structure here and utilizing it. Again, at the first floor, we have mechanical parking, which is to the southern portion of the floor plan. As you can see here, we have 3 stacked cars, 36 mechanical parking spaces in total. Directly above the parking garage begins your residential level. Dead center, again, is residential storage with perimeter residential units. Each unit have an outdoor space. So again, 4 floors of residential over the parking garage. Parking garage is again at floor to floor at 17 feet 6 inches, and each residential floor is at 10-foot floor to floor. So the overall building height is 58 feet 10 inches plus the amenity above, which is at 10 feet to the roof line. So we have 58 feet 10 inches, which is how building height is measured here in Jersey City. That's the principal building height plus 10 feet for the amenity above. Taking you to the black and white building elevations, you're looking at the New York Avenue facade. There's a 2-story portion clad in brick. That is the existing warehouse structure. And then we have a series of vertical piers that are capped in aluminum composite material that create the accent of the building design. Each building facade is broken up vertically with the outdoor spaces, and we also broke the roof line to kind of, change the scale vertically of these buildings, of the building, so you don't have a 100-foot long or 200-foot long facade. And you'll see in the black and white versions of the remainder that I think we were very successful at this. Lower right-hand corner of the elevation, again, we have a projected aluminum canopy at the building entry. Taking you back to the building rendering, again, you can see the projected canopy, the 2-story brick masonry at the warehouse structure, and then the majority of the upper floors and the southern addition for 5 stories is done in an aluminum composite material vertically and a stamped aluminum composite material horizontally, which creates, building dimension and building depth. Again, as previously stated, we have outdoor space, breaking the building up vertically, so we're changing the scale vertically of the building. We did remove the cornice and roof line at that outdoor space, which again changes the scale of the building and the length. And each corner, and you can almost see it here, and then in a couple more slides you're going to be able to see, is that the corners have outdoor area. So the building itself and the edges start to lessen, they start to dissipate. Again, it softens the edge of the building. And I'll get to that next. Two-dimensionally at Ravine Avenue, both left and right corners of the building are open. Horizontal stamped ACM panel, and the new portion, all the vertical components are ACM panel. The mechanical units are followed by a louvered screen that's part of the building design. And if I take you to the 3-dimensional rendering, this is Ravine Avenue. Here in the foreground, you can see is the bioswale component with the new and existing street trees to remain, and a 5-story portion of the building here. 2 outdoor spaces break up a 200-foot long facade here at Ravine Avenue. Again, cornice line is broken to change the scale of a otherwise would have been a longer building facade. Talking about the corners of the building, again, the building does not meet at a 90-degree angle at the corners. Each corner is open. The balconies are floating and cantilevered at the corner. So it lessens the building impact at the edges here. So not only do we have some centrally located outdoor space, we have corner outdoor spaces as well. and it is a design element to lessen the impact of the corner of each side of this building. This is the opposite side of New York Avenue and Ravine Avenue again, open corner with various outdoor spaces both on New York Avenue and going back to Ravine Avenue. So total building height, once again, as previously stated, is 58 feet 10 inches at 5 stories. Some of that additional height was driven by the 4 feet of height of the existing structure and the garage structure, followed by a very standard floor-to-floor height in residential construction at 10 foot 4 inches. So again, we did lessen the impact, of the 5 stories vertically and horizontally here by open space. As previously stated during, some of the other comments about the renderings and the building elevations, we do have brick masonry at the warehouse structure itself. We have cast stone elements and accent banding at the existing warehouse skin, followed by some cast stone base elements at the vertical piers. The copper color is a stamped aluminum composite panel. The windows will be some shade of gray that matches the ACM vertical piers. So once again, in conclusion, in the black and white version, even at Ferry Street, we have a shorter facade that's again broken with outdoor space, changing the scale of the building, and by now reusing the existing warehouse structure, facing it in brick, and the majority of the parts of the building are in ACM panel. So this concludes my presentation for the building itself.
Yeah, so Anthony, I'm again just trying to hit on some of the questions. We will have to comply with the new state statute regarding EV charging stations, correct, within the building?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Matt, how many would that be for this one? Just based on that, I think.
It's a total of 15% of the spaces have to be EV ready or adaptable. So basically, you have to have 5% when you construct, and then up to 15% of the spaces need to be basically readily adaptable for EV.
Okay. So we will comply with that, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. Ed, did you want to weigh in a little bit as well?
Sure. I was just going to go through a little bit of the process. I saw some questions coming up, and what's going to happen now is that there is an application pending before the Zoning Board of Adjustment. There'll be a hearing scheduled, and the public will be notified, and it will likely be a Zoom meeting, not unlike what we're doing right now. We'll make a presentation similar to this. And there'll be questions from the board, there'll be comments from the staff, we'll get reports ahead of time, and then the community as well can contribute their comments at the hearing. We are providing what we're thinking in terms of the beneficial aspects of the project. You heard Anthony talking about the flood control measures, the stormwater detention. There's a lot of aesthetic improvements. There's improvements to public safety in terms of the crosswalks and the stop signage and things of that nature. That'll all be reviewed by the municipality, by the city's engineering department, by their traffic engineers, the planning staff, and that will go back and forth a little bit before it's finalized. I also think that the providing the 6 affordable units, which amounts to 10% of the units as affordable, is also a public benefit. The community may be aware that the city's earlier affordable housing ordinance was thrown out by Superior Court. It's now been readopted at the end of December. The new ordinance. Technically, this project does not need to comply with that because the application was pending prior to the readoption. However, the developer is going to abide by the guidelines within the affordable housing ordinance, which calls for 10% of the 10% of the units to be affordable. It calls for those to be divided by 50% low income, which is persons making or families with incomes of 50% or less of the median income. 50% of the units will be moderate income, which is families where the income is over 50%, but not to exceed 80%. So we're going to abide by those guidelines. That's part of what we're going to be in our presentation. That's going to be the commitment from this development. And then the developer will have to enter into an agreement with the city's affordable housing division, which will spell that out more specifically. The ordinance also calls for unit distribution in terms of bedroom count. You can't put in all one-bedroom units. So there'll be a distribution where there'll be a couple units will be in the one-bedroom category. Several of the units, I'm sure, will be in the two-bedroom category. And then the guidelines do call for at least one of the units, because it's only 6, one of the units to be 3-bedroom. And we're going to follow those guidelines, and that'll all be specified in the agreement that the developer will enter into with the affordable housing division.
Okay. Was that it, Ed? Did you have anything else to add?
I think that's pretty much the overview, and I think we're all going to be here to answer any questions now at this time.
Yep, absolutely. So Jocelyn, thank you, and thank everybody for their patience, letting us. We tried to be as thorough as possible, but we're happy to enter into a discussion and entertain any questions that everyone may have. And,
okay, so let's go back to the page. Several people are asking specifically, what variances are you asking for? So let's go back to the page where the variances are listed.
Sure.
Okay, so why don't you tell us what the ordinance is and what you're asking for if it's a variance? If it's as of right, there's no discussion about it. You're building as of right, but you are asking for variances. So let's just focus on the variances you're asking for.
Yeah. So Anthony, I can go through it if you want, and then ask you just to clarify something. So, so obviously, this is a one-family zone, two-family zone. The number of units here is greater than what's permitted. So having a multifamily building such as this with 16 residential units is a D variance. Which is why we're in front of the Board of Adjustment. So I would say that's the overriding, that's the main crux of the variance relief that we're seeking in front of the board is for the use of the density itself. And then if you scroll down a little bit, just on Anthony's zoning table.
Okay, so before you do that, Jason, so just for comparison, how many units would you be able to build if you were not asking for a variance?
Yeah, Ed might or Anthony might answer that question better.
I can answer that question. So based on the lot area in the R1 zone, we are permitted 19 units.
Okay, so we're going to round that up to 20 just because the math is better. So basically, if you weren't asking for a variance, you could build roughly 20 units. The variance is asking for basically 40 units over that. Correct?
Ed, are you in, just make sure.
I think it's hard to compare apples to apples when you're talking about a two-family zone and a mid-rise building. When you look at the lot, you can see the parcel here. It's a trapezoidal shape. I don't know if there's very many right angles. So trying to divide this into...
No. Ed, trust me. I understand what you're saying. It's not like you can just chop it down the middle and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right, exactly.
I'm just trying to get for comparison's sake, if in a perfect world you left this lot was perfect, you could build 20 units. Obviously, we know the lot is not perfect, okay? But yes. 20 units and 60 units There's a big difference between those two numbers. So even in a perfect world with 20 units, you're still asking for 40 units more than that. I just want the numbers to make sense to people, because sometimes when you talk about things like per square foot or per square acre, nobody's an acre of anything in Jersey City unless you're out on 440 somewhere. So I just want to make sure that the comparison makes logical sense to the people that are watching.
No.
Gotcha. Yep. That's correct.
Fair enough, Jocelyn. That's accurate.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, sure, no problem. And then scrolling down, and again, although it's existing, but to your point about in a perfect world, the maximum building coverage is 60%, and we are going to be, Anthony, I believe, it's at 96%.
Yeah, 96.4, correct.
Right. So
which is existing, yes.
Right. So again, lot coverage is permitted at 85, and it's also 96.4. Building coverage is 60, also 96.4. We're sticking with what's existing, but again, asking your question of what the ordinance permits. Ordinance 60 for building coverage, 85 for lot coverage. And then on the signage, we will have a variance for the area of the sign. 12 square feet is permitted. We're proposing 30 square feet. And then the last two, and then if I miss any, Anthony and Ed can jump in. The last two is for the curb cut or the driveway width. So not 10 foot wide is permitted. We're at 19. And again, that was to accommodate the loading and other things that Anthony and Matt discussed. And then on the loading spaces, the clearance height, the clearance height requirement is 15 vertical clearance. We're at 12.6 clearance height, but as they indicated, a trash vehicle, an ambulance, a moving vehicle can all fit underneath the building to enter the loading area and the trash area. So, Jocelyn, those are the variances, I believe. Anthony, did I miss any?
No, I don't think so, Jason.
Okay.
Okay, so those are the variances you're asking for.
Correct? Yes.
Okay, all right. So I think at this point, let's go. I'm going to go through here, and so that we don't talk over each other, I'm going to just ask people when they hear their name to unmute themselves, because you all have the ability to unmute yourself, but let's not all do it, because then we can't hear questions and answers. And I'm going to just call out a name, ask the person to unmute themselves, and ask their question, so that we can kind of keep this orderly, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and Jocelyn, I'll try to direct the best person from our group to answer the question after it's asked.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah.
All right, Patrick Moore.
Jocelyn, I didn't ask any questions. Well, I asked a lot of questions, but they've been answered.
Well, you asked a few questions here. So do you have any of them that you want to ask directly, or?
No, they've been answered, but I would say, could you go back to the slide of the roof? I'm a little confused with the courtyard in the middle and then the green roof on top. Now I'm just the slide of the roof. Oh, okay. Now I see it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you good to go, Patrick?
Yeah, no, thank you.
No problem. Okay, Emily O, are you still with us?
Yes, here.
Okay, ask away.
Okay, my main concerns and questions are, how will you work with the city and the community to maintain the green spaces and trees? I understand that that's not necessarily the role that you would play, but how can we have assurance that that would be maintained respectfully?
Okay, so you're just let me make sure I'm answering it correctly. So the streetscape that we're proposing along the sidewalks and the curbs, you're asking us how to ensure that those are maintained properly.
Right.
Okay. So I'll try to answer this earlier, but I'll try to do better, I guess. So if the plan were approved, we will have a landscape plan that will have all these items on it in extreme detail. That plan is ultimately signed off on by the zoning board if it's approved. We are then, that approval, if the application is built, runs with the land, and we are responsible legally then to ensure that it's built in that manner. If the developer or owner does not maintain it in that manner, they can be, the city is allowed to enforce that. So they could be cited, they could be compelled, but the point is they don't want to get to that point. And they know once they construct the building that they're legally bound by that. We could also, and again, this is a way to use the zoning board process in their resolution of approval. If the zoning board were to approve it in the resolution, it could also lay out the maintenance responsibilities of the applicant with respect to the landscaping as well. So we would be legally bound, as I guess the underlying theme.
Does that cover the green roof as well?
Yeah, and in fact, what a lot of boards, cities, and towns do now is they make you file a deed, a covenant with the green roof that has a maintenance agreement in there, like sort of lays out the maintenance, and it runs with the land. So it does cover the green roof, to your point.
Okay, does that answer your question, Emily?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Lynn and Andy.
I mean, my major question is, it's twofold. How does the neighborhood benefit from this building being built, besides getting rid of an eyesore, which if you're not the ones to get rid of it, someone else will? But more importantly, how will the neighborhood benefit from 60 units / why do you have to make this building so big?
All right, Ed, do you want to go maybe from a planning standpoint, just through some of the, positives that you see for the area?
The existing use, which is the industrial warehouse use, is protected. It pre-existed the current zoning. I believe it pre-existed zoning completely. So what you have today is a building that has roughly 100% lot coverage. You have no stormwater detention systems. It's the traffic that goes in and out, the trucks, they could continue for forever, and no improvements would be required to be made to things like the stormwater, the aesthetics, the street trees, or any of the other things. So in planning terminology, the removal of this non-conforming industrial use from the neighborhood and replacing it with a residential use, which is not permitted either because it is a mid-rise building versus a two-family house. Nonetheless, that's considered to be a benefit because you're promoting the residential purpose and intent of the zoning. So from the planning ease aspect of it, that'd be considered a benefit. And then we're looking at the other, the aesthetic improvements and also the provision of the affordable housing. Affordable housing is considered to be inherently beneficial. So providing 10% affordable is a beneficial aspect of the project as well. So those are the types of things that we will be using in our presentation to the zoning board to support our request for the use variance.
But that doesn't answer my question about why 60 units. What benefit is that to the neighborhood, 60 units?
Well, I think the benefit is what I was saying, the removal of the industrial land use, the addition of the stormwater detention system, the aesthetic improvements, and the affordable housing.
But it's not 60. You have to
one doesn't happen without the other.
But you mean you can't give us those bennies without 60? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, yes.
That sounds hard to believe. You mean you can't give us those bennies without your developer making scads of money and having 60? That's what you mean.
I'm not saying that, and I wouldn't say that. But nothing gets built for free. I mean, it has to be paid for. So that's the proposal. That's the application that's being presented to the board.
So in the future, then every developer will read this idea. Let's ask for 9 stories, get the neighborhood in a huff, then scale back to 5 stories so that everybody rolls over and says, well, this is better than the monstrosity they asked for previously. So this will be a strategy moving forward. We're here long term. You're here repeatedly. This is not my first rodeo with you watching these buildings, but for the people who live in this neighborhood, we are here long term. So we have to think about what happens to the next meeting and the next building that wants to keep putting in more and more people. So that's why we're all wasting our Wednesday night listening to floor after floor after floor described to us in minutia detail, so you guys can tire us out and we can roll over and let you do what you want. That's our concern. Thank you.
Okay, any response to that before we move on?
I didn't hear a question in there, so no, I don't have a response.
Okay. Trisha Ocone.
I think my question was already asked by Lynn. Thank you.
Okay, just want to make sure. Ken Maltabano. Is Ken still with us? Let me see if Ken's still on my list.
Hello, everyone. Yes.
Okay, there you are. Okay.
Yeah. So I had a question. Are these units expected to be rental apartments or condos for sale?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, Ken, it's a good question. I don't believe the developer has made that decision. I think somebody actually answered it very well in the section. To be honest with you, I don't remember who it was, but the answer given there was proper, which is, typically it's built for either or, and then market conditions at the time would dictate the type of building that that the developer would do.
Okay. Next up is Michelle Meager.
Yeah, hi. So I had one question, but a couple of concerns. So, the fact that you just said you don't know if it's going to be rental or condos, then you can't really factor in the impact on parking, because I'm on Ravine, so literally right on the corner, directly across. I'm a homeowner, so I'm sure everyone who's a homeowner can agree that it's an eyesore, and anything that's going to raise the value of our property is welcomed. But my neighbors next to me, those 2 units, in between the 2 units, they have 5 cars with 2 parking spots. So you have 3 cars additional on this block. So if those are rentals, you can't guarantee you're going to have 3 guys living together with 1 parking spot. That's going to impact parking. On top of which, if you add the 4 stop signs on the corner, this intersection is a nightmare to begin with. It's only going to get worse. The traffic, you underestimated. I work from home. I hear it all day long. It is constant. So that is, I don't think you've adequately factored that in addition to adding probably 200 more people to a 2-block radius between what you're proposing, and the building on Ferry in New York. And then my neighbors can't be on this call, but they have the roof, and this is going to destroy their view, and that is going to decrease the value of properties, especially along Ravine. So I don't personally see something at that size to be a benefit to the community. What it's zoned for, I would be totally down for, but 60 units seems really excessive.
Okay. Next up is Jason, not Jason Tuvel, just Jason.
Yes, I'm all set. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Christina Lee.
Sure. I think my only question is, you say this is for the community benefit, but can you tell us what your projected estimated revenue and income is on the completion of this project?
I don't know the answer to that, Christina.
Okay.
I don't know if Anthony or Ed does. I don't know the answer to that.
There's no range that you can provide us?
I would have to go ask the client if they've done their homework.
I mean, they clearly would have, otherwise they wouldn't be building on this. I work in real estate investment. I know what the numbers and projections and models look like. They have something that they can run and provide us.
Of course they run the numbers. I'm not questioning that. I just said I don't have. If you wanted, we want to give you guys proper and accurate answers, and I'm saying I just don't have that answer for you.
Yeah, I think that's, a lot of what the community wants is that transparency because we only see the density increasing without actual added benefit to the community.
No, I understand your comment.
So if you could get a number back to us, that'd be great.
Okay. Oleg, I'm going to ruin your name, so I'm just going to go with Oleksi.
Hi.
Hi.
I live on Buran. I can see the sky from my bedroom right now. With the building that high, still very high, you're just taking my sky from me. I don't know how this benefits me. It does not. And I expect some noise from your air conditioners on the roof that I'm gonna hear. This is not why I moved into this neighborhood. You are ruining my experience. So you guys want to make my life horrible, and I don't like it. Thank you.
Roger Heitman, you're next.
Hello?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, my proposal, and it's just my opinion, is why not do 45 units versus 60 and mitigate the traffic problems or at least partially mitigate them and have bigger units and also 45 parking spaces. That's one question. The other question is, could we get a shadow study of the building and how it's going to affect the light on the adjacent properties? That's it.
Okay. Any response to those two questions?
Yeah, all I would say is, and it was brought up multiple times, on the traffic issue, Matt did a traffic study. He's confident as someone who does these all the time in the findings and the results. But again, those will be reviewed and analyzed by other experts who represent the county and the city. And if they feel, for any reason we're off base or we need to modify it or we need to look at something else, we're happy to do that to determine what the traffic impacts would be. So I just want to reassure everybody that will be properly vetted, but we're confident in the report that we have. On the shadow study, Anthony, do you have any comment on that?
The shadow study should be included in the set of plans that were online on the Riverview webpage. So there was a shadow study done. Obviously with the sun, rising in the east, setting in the west, it's wrapping around the property, basically on this page, starting above Trolley House Lofts and then, returning back around to Webster Avenue. Because of the right of way and the width of the right of way, you will have some shadow depending on the time of year cast. But again, at 5 stories and 58 feet, and based on the right of way widths, it will have impact, but it will have minimal impact. And then also we have several 1-story parking garages that we have no impact on. So that's it.
I thought that was a valid question that a shadow study should be done, and we did prepare one, and I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware.
Okay. Nick Buffum.
Can you hear me?
Yep, now I can hear you.
Okay. I am a member of the development committee for the Riverview Neighborhood Association, and we've talked about this project quite a bit. And we had a few bullet points coming out of our discussions. The first, and I missed the first couple minutes, maybe you guys apologize for this already, but it seems to be incredibly bad faith to be presenting these plans when you're currently suing the city to build an even larger building. Now, for those who don't know, the city took the last plans and said that there was no cause to give a variance. A variance has to prove a hardship for the developer of the site or a positive community benefit. A strong positive community benefit, not getting rid of the eyesore that they already own and created. The city did not find that that happened, and your clients are suing the city now. So theoretically, you could go back to the planning board if you won that and then just build 75 stories, making this entire night meaningless. You know, we've had 60 people here for an hour and a half. You're wasting our time. You're being incredibly disrespectful. Now, did I miss my first question? Did I miss the apology? Did you drop the lawsuit?
The lawsuit, to my understanding, I guess it's Nicholas, right, is still pending.
Okay. So moving on from that, you know, we talked about it the last time. We talked about it when you presented the other project. The scale and the density of this is just simply too big for the location. I mean, it's an R1 zone. It's a single 1 and 2 family zone. And what you're proposing is twice what's allowed in an R2 zone. You know, I mean, it's just in the wrong location. It's a beautiful building. It has great designs. There's some passion in the design. Like, it's interesting to look at. That's great, but it's too big. We come back time and again to that number around 40 units, which is still a 200% increase. And I just don't understand why you're not hearing that in this. I mean, anything over 40 units, really the only thing we as a community and we feel we should be considering is if it's affordability. You know, that it comes down to like increased affordable housing is like one of the biggest priorities and one of the biggest needs in this neighborhood. And 6 units, it's nice, but we'd rather see 20%. We'd rather see, 30%. Maybe you want to go 5 stories on something like that. Give us something real. Don't give us bioswales. Give us something we can sink our teeth into as a community. We have to look at this beyond the one lot, beyond the one building. This will set a precedent, just like other buildings in this area have. This kind of height and density without any affordability or without a huge amount of affordability is just going to translate into similar projects all around here. And we see them, we do this all the time. We do this every couple months. I'll be honest, like our committee is split on whether or not we'd ever support anything beyond 40 units, even if they were affordable, because of how dense this situation is, because there's 500 units coming online within a couple hundred feet of your property. And, we've been to enough of these meetings with you guys, and you did a great presentation, but it's your job to blow smoke up our ass. It's your job to present everything in the most glorious light. In a traffic study, when you give a warehouse operating at 100% when it hasn't been over 10 in a decade? I mean, come on, guys. The reason they're not using the warehouse is because of traffic gridlock. Let's be real about what we're asking for here. The building's too big. The zoning board said it's too big, and you guys are coming back while at the same time suing us to try to go even bigger. So unless we see a real commitment with lots more affordable housing units, I don't think the development committee is going to support this. I'm glad to see a drop-off spot, an unloading spot. That was a concern. We're concerned about the streetscape and having half of our neighborhood look like we're walking by a parking garage. But the big thing is the density. And until we get over that, all the talk about green roofs or how many tree pits is just kind of meaningless. So no question there.
Okay. Any feedback? If not, I'll just keep moving down the list.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say as just a global comment that we're listening to all the concern. I didn't have the benefit of being part of, I guess, the prior process. And, we're listening to all your comments. This is the first time, me personally, that I'm hearing them as the project attorney now. And we will take them all seriously, speak together, and, communicate with you going forward. So I just globally, I just wanted to make that clear that we're taking all these comments, under consideration and take them very seriously.
But Jason, just to just to point out one thing, that Nicholas is saying that I think is an extremely valid point.
Okay.
It does make this conversation a little bit of why bother when you're still being sued. It's like the lawsuit is still there. So how genuine is this conversation when, if the lawsuit goes your way, none of this means anything because you have no incentive to do this or to do anything if in fact you do win the lawsuit. Now, obviously, if you don't, then it's a different story. But it just seems like if there was some legitimacy to your concerns and you really wanted to work with us, why is the lawsuit still there?
Yeah, no, I understand the question. And again, I'm not handling that aspect of it. I'm just doing the development part, which is the part that comes before you. But let's just put it this way. I understand the comments that you're providing based on that. I'll speak to the client about it, but I don't have enough knowledge of the lawsuit to speak to it. That's all.
Okay, because I think you need to really make the client understand that it's hard to ask someone to effectively do you a favor by approving something with variances when you're being sued. I mean, if it was a one-to-one thing and, you're suing your ex-wife for divorce, she's not going to be nice because you're suing her. She's going to be nice if you go to a mediator, but she's not going to be nice if you're dragging her to court. And this is kind of how this is coming across as, I'm taking your butt to court, but don't you want to be nice to me, even though I'm still taking you to court? So you have to kind of, look at it from our point of view. How do you say that you want to work with us and you're still basically?
No, I understand the viewpoint, and I understand exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
So, we will have a discussion after hearing everything out, and we'll obviously come back to you with our thoughts.
Okay, Brendan, Leo, and Liz.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay, Albert.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. And thank you for all the time too on this. I don't mean to dwell on the trash pickup. To give you a little bit of context too, like for the developers and architect on here. I've lived in these buildings before, these kind of buildings, and I'm a little confused still. If you're saying that the inside, the trash pickup will happen inside, but are you saying that as that's an option, or that's actually going to happen, or that's a requirement? Reason is, with these buildings, a lot of times, if they're going to be using dumpsters or large bins, a truck is going to have to come in, park itself, make a whole lot of noise between the hours of like 10 and midnight. And so I live on Ferry Street, so I live like a few feet away from here. And I appreciate right now that trash comes by, they pick up the bins quickly, and they keep moving. It's very minimal. Noise happens, I understand that, but when they're parked there for 10 to 15 minutes, picking up and putting down these dumpsters and stuff, that's a lot of noise. And I'm a little concerned about that. I'm a little confused as to what is the requirement, or if what you're showing us is just an option and it's totally up to the management company to decide. And so I just want to get that clarity here.
Yeah, so Anthony, would we be able to it seems like that's a concern in terms of, having the operator utilize the door that goes to the exterior as opposed to picking up the trash on the interior, if I'm understanding the question. Is that exterior door just like an emergency door that you have to have in a trash room? Is that the reason for it?
You always would want to have, a secondary access point, in a compactor room. So yes, it acts as a secondary door. Should the project get approved, and I don't even want to speak out of turn here, but you could make it a condition of approval that all trash and recycling will be removed through the garage itself and not, by the sidewalk. So
that's what I was getting at. That from a building design standpoint, that's plausible, and that door could be restricted as an emergency door only. That would, that can only be used in limited circumstances.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Megan McKee.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. So my question was in regards to parking. So as much as I appreciate having a space per unit, the question that I have is, does it automatically come with the unit, or does the person have to pay extra for it? So, for example, down in that Hoboken, Jersey City area in between the Holland Tunnel, there's a building there that when they built it, all of a sudden, all these cars were on the street because they had to pay for the parking. And that would be 60 cars potentially going onto the street that would not want to pay for their spot.
I agree with you 100%. There shouldn't be and you're right, I've seen that happen in other situations. There shouldn't be an extra payment for parking that makes it excessive to park in the building and therefore parking on the street. That we do not want that. So
Yeah, I think a lot of times that happens in buildings that there are not a 1-to-1 ratio. Perhaps they have less parking spaces per unit, so they almost price you into wanting to get that scarcity. But yeah, here will be built in to the rent that whatever rent you pay includes one of the parking spaces.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that was Megan who said that.
Yeah.
We will not do that if that's what you're asking.
So would that be built into the rules of the building so that whoever takes over the management or decides?
Yeah, exactly. And if again, this is up to the board, right? So we could always suggest, or the public could suggest something, but it's always up to the board on how they approve it. But we would have no objection if the board made that a condition of the approval.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Anthony Townsend. Anthony, are you still with us? I see him online, but I don't see him unmuting. Okay, I'll go back to him. Let's see, Kara Bergman. Kara. Looks like we lost Kara. Albert. Becky's got voice problems. Trisha Ocone. Oh, Trisha's gone. Oh, I heard somebody unmute themselves. Is that you, Anthony? Oh, okay.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Sure, go right ahead.
I'm not sure if this was answered. I apologize. What is the time frame for when? I know there's a lot of things still up in the air, but what's the estimated time frame for, I guess, this project to begin or construction to begin? Is there an estimated time frame that you guys are looking forward to?
I think we can answer the question in that if it were approved, how long would it take to build? If that's your question.
Right. That's what she's asking, because it's not they can't really estimate when they're going to, because they don't have an approval yet. So they can only tell you how long they think it might take after they get their approval.
Yeah. So assuming we got approved and we had all of our permits, Anthony, do you have an estimate on how long the construction would be for this building?
Yeah, I would estimate this at 16 to 18 months of construction turnkey here.
Right. How much of it would be, and how long would it take for the construction to be mainly on the interior of the building?
They probably have the full building envelope and everything up, within the first 4 or 5 months on this. So, you're looking at working, inward for, the better part of close to a year, of that 18 months.
Thank you.
All right. Harriet, I don't think is still here. I don't see her. Dan, are you still here?
I'm still here, but I'm good. I don't have any.
You're good?
Questions. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
All right,
Yeah,
Sean.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead. Okay, Sean.
Could I ask a question?
Sure, go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Jim. I live in the Trolley House Lofts, and I was just curious regarding what measures you would be taking during the construction and demolition process to just ensure like the safety of the buildings around it. I live right across the street of the huge development that just went up on New York Ave, and some of when they were just drilling into the concrete to put down the foundation, it really shook our whole building, frankly. And I know there's a lot of buildings around that building, and it's a pretty big footprint. So I'm just curious about what's planned around that.
Yeah, I'll take this one. We're very fortunate that this building is kind of an island onto itself, and then also we're utilizing 2/3 of the existing building structure and foundation. So we're only let's say 1/3 of the site. We only have to propose new foundations, and here up on the Palisades there won't be any pile driving, so there won't be any vibration. You're doing the foundations on the southern portion of the site itself. As far as protection, I'm thinking that the owner or the developer and or general contractor is going to have to line this property in scaffolding, on all four sides, and then provide protection screening and work inward and work out. Again, I think vibration will be, probably at a minimum here, just because we're utilizing 2/3 of the existing structure.
Does that answer your question? I guess that's a yes. Jim, you had a question?
That was just me, so thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know. I just saw a hand up.
Yeah,
are you still here?
Jocelyn, I think somebody asked a question in the comments. Becky Hoffman, do we have a date for our board application yet? The answer to that is no. We wanted to have this meeting before going back to the planning department, and the planning department also wanted us to meet with the community as well. So we don't have a date yet to answer that question.
Okay. Deirdre, do you still have a question?
Hi, hello. Yes, just briefly, the question would be to follow up on aspects of the lawsuit. And I'm just curious if you are allowed to, in fact, present another proposal to the zoning board while you have an existing lawsuit with the previous proposal on the same site. It seems as though two plans for the same site are possibly gaming the system or just creating a potential conflict. And I'm not sure how the zoning board approaches that, if anyone could address that. Thank you.
Yeah, really, again, I can't, and I'm sorry, I know no one likes this answer, but I really can't comment on the lawsuit aspects of it. One, because typically you don't comment on things during litigation, and two, I'm not handling that, so I really don't know the ins and outs of it. So again, I'm sorry for that answer. I know nobody wants to hear that, but unfortunately, that's what I'm going to have to say.
Okay, Kelly Quinn.
Hi.
Hi.
I don't have a question, so much just a comment to make my statement known. I'm a homeowner here. I've been here for about 10 years. It seems like the variance that you guys are asking for is a big ask. I personally don't have anything against like density or parking or whatever. I think the neighborhood's changing and the city's changing, and I'm okay with that. However, I think that the ask that you're asking for is really big, and I think that the community would really like to see more affordable housing. As the neighborhood has changed, a lot of people are getting left behind or pushed out, and there's a lot of resentment growing about these sorts of houses being built, and sort of the new people coming in, or the idea of like the luxury aspect coming in and what that represents. And we can't keep on making all these exceptions and radically changing the zoning, because it just creates a bad precedent. So if you guys were able to increase the amount of affordable housing and kind of integrate this building and this project in with the neighborhood, I think that could really go far in getting maybe this passed. That's all.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, I'm just going to let, if people have something to say, I think, because it's almost 9:30, so I've gone through a lot of the questions. Does anybody have any comments, any other questions they want to ask? I know there's a long one here from Lindsay, but I'm not sure if Lindsay's still with us.
I do, if anyone can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, hi, this is Gabriel. I just have a question and a comment, but I know we're going late, so I won't belabor it.
I was just saying because I know that there's, a lot of things have been going back and forth, but please take your time.
Thanks for hosting the meeting, and Jason, Ed, Anthony, and Matt, thanks for your presentation. It was really well done, and I guess you should be commended for taking part in this. I guess I have two questions. One is there commercial space in the building at all?
Anthony, the answer is no, right?
The answer is no, and we've kind of originally we have met with Riverview several times, and one of the earlier comments was that they didn't want to see commercial retail on the first floor of this building because it would pull away commercial retail from the Palisades corridor. So we listened to that comment and we took the retail out because we did have it here originally.
All right, and then you mentioned like a couple of times in the Q&A period, like you're talking about your client. Who is that?
It's the owner, Moshe Skaba. He owns the property.
Yeah.
Or he's the principal, the person of the entity of the property.
Fair enough. Listen, pretty much all my other questions were answered. I mean, I put my comment, I said my comments in the comment section earlier. The building is just too big. It sets the precedent it sets a precedent, and the next developer is going to come in and they're going to say, I've got a 19 zoned for 19 units and I want 70 because the last guy's got 60, or I want 65. And that's what's happening in Palisade Avenue. I mean, I've listed the addresses in the comment section. So it's not like this is some secret here. I mean, this is what happens. It's precedent. It's human nature, right? And it's just massive. I mean, there's no way that communities could agree to 60 units in a zone for 19. It's like borderline insulting, with all due respect. And I mean, the other part is like curb cuts. I love curb cuts. I ride my bike to work every day. I love curb cuts, but we shouldn't have to get sick. We shouldn't have to have 60 units shoved down our throat in the neighborhood in a 19-unit zoned area to get a darn curb cut. We live in the second biggest city in New Jersey, one of the wealthiest states in the United States, and the city can't put a curb cut? We have to rely on you guys for a curb cut? I don't think so. And that's my view. And it's, and the new sidewalks. It's great there are new sidewalks. I'm very grateful you're putting that there, but you're putting that there because you're building 60 units there. If we want a new sidewalk, the city should put a new sidewalk. If we want storm water runoff basins, a storm water runoff, we shouldn't have to rely on you for that. And, so, I mean, that's it at this point. I mean, thank you for your presentation. The building is beautiful. In an area that's zoned for 60 units, it's beautiful. In an area zoned for 55 units, it's beautiful. In a area zoned for 50 units, it's beautiful. But in an area zoned for 19, unfortunately, it's not. And anyone on this call that supports this project or doesn't support it, your comments mean a little bit here, but they really mean something in the zoning board meeting, because that's ultimately the meeting that's going to decide this, not this meeting. Thank you again for hosting it, and thank you for allowing us to comment and answering our questions.
Thank you, Gabriel. Okay, I see that Sigdum, I'm really bad with some of these names. Sigdum Ozturk.
Hi, yeah, this is Chidam.
Oh, see, I told you, I totally messed that up. I knew that was wrong.
That's okay. My comment was only about the traffic. Actually, I take my kids to Hoboken to school every morning from New York Avenue down Ravine and New York Avenue. And the traffic is really bad there. Before pandemic, from 8 to 8:30, it was always very heavy. So we will be late for school. Even during the pandemic, it's not still ideal. around 8 o'clock. So having like 60 more units right in that corner, unless there's a dramatic change with the roads or traffic, I don't see that moving. And plus we have a Sawyer building now, which is a new building. And then there's another one which they are building in front of Sawyer. So with the light rail, I really cannot imagine the traffic on that road with all these multi-apartment buildings. That was my comment. And thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna just open the floor up. You can, if you have a question, just unmute yourself and ask it. And if two of you do it at the same time, I'll pick one. Do we have any outstanding questions? Anything?
I have a question.
Okay, there you go.
Follow up to Gabriel when he asked who the developer was. Can you tell us what other projects the developer has going on? And I just want to know whether this is a reputable developer, the projects that they've worked on, what issues they've encountered on those sites, and just getting more of a historical perspective on the builder.
Yeah, I can't answer that this second, but like I think there were some other questions that we needed to come back with some follow-up. I will do that on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Christina?
That was me, Jocelyn.
Oh, that was you. Okay,
Yeah,
I couldn't tell. Sorry. Okay. Oh, anyone else?
I'm curious, how practical is the mechanical parking from a daily usage standpoint?
Matt, do you want to?
So I was saying this model, this carousel mechanical parking is used. I've actually worked on a number of projects. It's been used in Hoboken. It's been used in Hackensack. The company I think is actually a company that's I think their local office is in Hackensack. This is a very reputable style of parking that's being used more and more as you're trying to reach certain parking supply numbers in urban infill development where you have limited space. That this becomes one of the preferred methods is this kind of carousel style parking.
Does it require
There's a number of videos online. If you search like carousel mechanical parking, you'll be able to see how it operates.
But the user, the parker, is the person actually using it. There's no attendee or anything.
Yeah, there's no attendee. Basically, I mean, in general, usually there's a protective gate so someone doesn't accidentally enter the area when the machine is moving. The driver basically either by fob or by keypad, depending if they're in the car or retrieving their car, basically enters in that they are arriving. The gate would open up. They basically drive in as if they're parking into a normal stall. When they get out of the car and they basically re-hit the fob or their keypad, that's when the machine would basically operate and basically move it to another position.
Okay. And then
basically drive in, drive out.
And then I have a question about the traffic study from New York Ave. I live on New York Ave, 125. And I was curious, the parking as it is, or not the parking as it is, but the stop sign where it's currently located, if you were to cross Ferry coming from New York Avenue, it's pretty set back pretty far, so it doesn't really provide adequate sight for crosswalk safety. You have to actually travel through. You can see it there where the stop bar is on New York. You have to actually travel through the crosswalk to get to the safe viewing angle. Have you looked at that as a part of the traffic study as well, just to maybe extend the curb on sort of the north side of Ferry as well?
So that one of those reasons is exactly why we had proposed to make that intersection all-way stop. Right now, what you said is exactly what we've witnessed. In order to see around those kind of garages, you have to inch up over to the crosswalk because cars are coming, let's say, if they're traveling legally, 20 to 25 miles an hour down Ferry. If it's an all-way stop, where the car would stop on Ferry for you to be able to see them would be visible from your stops where the stop sign's located now. So you wouldn't have to worry about the cars coming through at a 20-mile-an-hour path. You reach the stop sign, you look, you'll be able to see, whether that person got there first or you got there first, and do your typical alternating traffic at the all-way stop sign.
Great. Thank you. And I guess it's just sort of a broader question and sort of in keeping with the theme of the evening as well. I bought my house here to, sort of escape the high rises. We lived in Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens. Now we live here. We're very happy in our quiet neighborhood. But, as somebody who lives in the shadow or the future shadow of this potential building, I just don't see why it's appropriate. I know you cited Trolley House, 122, but I mean, there's more units in this proposed building than there are in those two buildings combined. So, this is going to look like a spaceship dropped it off. Just curious why it's appropriate for this neighborhood, other than, drainage, etc.
Ed, are you still there? Do you want to just give your 2 cents from a planning perspective?
Well, yeah, not to be repetitive, but I think that our position or our comments before is I would have to basically repeat that. We do have an existing industrial structure that would be removed, and this particular site is unique in that it's surrounded by rights of way on all 4 sides, so it's not immediately adjacent to any other residential property. It's across the street from residential properties and from some other high rises or mid rises and such. We just felt that it was appropriately scaled given those circumstances. Of course, there's going to be a difference of opinion from members of the community, and there may be difference of opinion from members of the board, and we'll just have to see how it proceeds.
Yeah, and Ed, would it be fair to say, the original application that everyone has been referencing earlier, that was larger and with more units, did receive a majority vote from the board. It didn't receive the supermajority vote that is required for an approval. So, going back to the drawing board here, knowing that, it was viewed somewhat favorably, we're trying to tweak it to accommodate the concerns that occurred at the previous meeting and that we heard, right? I mean, again, we're going to take everyone's comments from here and examine them, but that's sort of the thought process, right?
Exactly. There's hopefully there's going to be a continuing give and take, and then the board will decide.
Okay. All right. Do we have any outstanding questions? If not,
I have one.
Okay, go right ahead.
Architectural question is regarding the parking garage. Is it going to be open so that we have to look at the cars in the garage, or is there a plan to put, frosted glass or?
It's a good question. Anthony, can you answer that for them?
Yeah, absolutely. No, the parking garage is going to be enclosed. It will have translucent windows. This is something we agreed to on the previous application. So you're not just staring at the face of cars, but there will be glazing there. So you will be seeing, somewhat of a glow. And it'll be mechanically ventilated. So this is not an open air parking garage.
Okay.
Okay. Any final questions before we wrap up for the evening? You guys have been great. You've been patient. I want to thank everybody who's hung in there. It's been a long 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 15 minutes, depending upon how I do the math.
Jocelyn, would you, and thank you for, running this meeting. Were you the person that we could follow up with just to make sure we're addressing all the comments and questions that came up and that we would?
Sure. And then we can just post the question. We can post the responses on our website. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. If there are no more questions, did you have anything you wanted to say to kind of wrap it up, Jason?
No, I mean, I think we've heard everybody. We're going to talk about all the comments that were received as a group, and hopefully we can continue this dialogue to a positive result. That's what we're hoping for.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. I keep thinking we're standing looking at each other, and we're not. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. It was great to hear from everybody. Thank you all for your honest opinions. I think that, at this point, I think the biggest question that everybody is going to have is what's going on with the lawsuit. You know, and I think that's something that, Jason, I think you need to, that's probably the first thing you need to address, because, you know, reading the comments and looking at what people are saying, the lawsuit still being out there is not helping people feel confident that anything is going to happen, you know, positive or negative. So, I mean, I think that's something that we need to kind of address or find out where we are with that. So, but thank you all so much. It was good to see you guys. Good to see you again, Anthony. I'm beginning to recognize you without even seeing your name now, Anthony.
Feel free to stop me on the street.
Only if you're buying coffee. So, but thank you guys so much. Thank you everybody tonight. This session is recorded, and I will be posting it up on the website in a couple of days if you want to go back and listen to it. So thank you once again, everybody, and have a great night.
Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care.